Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Busy day today. Newsflash just out. Report in the Daily Mail about Samantha Markle. Apparently there was a hearing today via Zoom with Samantha Markle, her lawyer, Meghan's lawyer and the judge. Now I need help here to understand something. Anybody out there familiar with Florida law, civil law? Because something the judge has said at this hearing has got me worried and confused because I don't understand it. I would imagine that the basics of defamation law are very similar no matter what country you're in, but apparently not. Apparently in Florida, if what I have read about the judge is an accurate report of what she said, I'm flummoxed. I'm absolutely flummoxed. So this literally came out about 40 minutes ago. The headline is, it's Markle versus Markle. Samantha Markle accuses Meghan of defaming her in order to cover up her false rags to riches narrative during virtual court hearing. Right now, the judge has said during this hearing, and there's quite a lot, her lawyers have said a lot of stuff as well, which has confused and flummoxed me. And I'm only a law student. I'm not a lawyer. Don't take my legal advice. The judge is saying she's struggling to see how Meghan published anything in order to be defamatory. Samantha's lawyer, Peter Ticktin, told the court that Finding Freedom was used by the Duchess to affirm this false narrative that she supposedly lived this rags to riches thing. He said she got caught, she was lying about her education, that she was getting all these scholarships, her father paid for her education for goodness sake, and she got caught with this lie. Why else is she putting her sister down? Why is she putting her father down? And he goes on and on and on. Now, Michael Kemp apparently is Meghan's lawyer. Meghan's lawyer, Michael Kemp, fired back saying 90% of Ticktin's comments were inappropriate and were, quite frankly, offensive to his client. I would suggest it doesn't take much, Mr. Kump, to offend your client. From what I've seen, she gets offended very, very, very easily. Not every... This to me is unbelievable that he would say this. Not every perceived slight ought to be litigated. And that's true here. Haven't perceived slights been litigated, thrown out there, bombs thrown at the royal family over every perceived little slight? And yet, here we are, Meghan's lawyer saying, not every perceived slight ought to be litigated. Plaintiff is taking issue with Meghan's own impressions of her childhood growing up, but that's not a proper subject matter for a court of law. The statements at issue here are not defamatory as a matter of law. This is Meghan's lawyer speaking. A right, you're going to love this, a right to voice opinions and even criticise are guaranteed by the First Amendment. That is until you're on YouTube and you're a YouTube creator, and then apparently you don't have your free speech, you don't have your First Amendment rights, but Meghan does. Whoa, is that cheeky or what? Courts have held pre-trial dismissal is necessary in defamation cases because of the chilling effect these cases have on First Amendment rights. Wow. More front than beachy head, as we'd say in my country. Kump argued that the first 7 of the 10 statements cited by Samantha as defamatory from Finding Freedom should be excluded since Meghan did not write the book nor publish it. And she didn't. He said, the law in Florida is clear. Publication requires that the defendant made or published the false statement. Well, Meghan made those statements. They're in the emails from her to Jason Knorf. They're in permanent form. They exist. She did make those statements, and they were repeated by Omid Scobie in Finding Freedom. I presume that's the nub of that problem there. Kump also argued that Meghan's comments in the Oprah interview were not defamatory when taken in context. He said Meghan's claim that she was an only child was not the whole story. He cited the moment in the interview when Oprah asked Meghan about her half-sister on her father's side. Kump said Meghan did not respond by denying her existence and argued that her comments were a statement and expression of her own personal subjective feelings. So, if Meghan has a brother and a sister, or doesn't have a brother and a sister, those are her subjective feelings, not facts. Well, I've got two sisters, and neither of them are subjective feelings. They're facts. I have two sisters. They exist. If I were to say I'm an only child, they don't exist, that would be a false statement, because my sisters are not subjective facts. So, does Meghan have an older brother and older sister? Yes or no? If she does, she was not an only child. If she doesn't, can you see what I mean? You can't just erase a family member and say, that's just my opinion. I'm sorry, Mr. Kump, I don't see where you're coming from with that one. I really don't. The statement that Samantha only changed her surname to Markle when Meghan began dating Harry in 2016 was substantially true, the court heard. Kump said that the second complaint filed by Samantha failed to fix the fatal defects that plagued the original. Ticktin tried to claim that Meghan had collaborated with the authors of Finding Freedom by providing background information to them through her press secretary at the time, Jason Knorth. Ticktin claimed that this would be the second time Meghan is going to have to apologise for misleading the court. And I think misleading, wasn't it misremembering, if that word even bloody exists. Judge Honeywell cut in and said, even accepting what you just said, I'm still struggling to understand how that makes her responsible for publishing allegedly defamatory statements contained in the book. And this is where I need your help. Now, in UK law, the term defamation or the term defamatory is a very, very broad, general, umbrella term for saying shit that ain't true about someone else, which then causes them damage. Okay? That is the definition in UK law, unless it's changed substantively since I was studying law. Any Florida lawyer out there, can you honestly tell me, is that absolutely true? That in Florida, you don't have slander and libel, you only have defamation. Do you not have a permanent state and a temporary state? Is that the case? Because that is, to me, what the judge is saying. That strictly under Florida law, and the judge even goes on to say, I'm not dealing with UK law, I'm not dealing with African law, I'm not dealing with Greek law, we're dealing with Florida law. Is it true that you do not have slander? Now, in the UK, slander is a temporary chatting of shit about somebody that's not true, that goes on to cause them damage. Libel is the permanent state of spewing shit about somebody that is not true, that then goes on to cause them damage. And in all cases, though, the people must be identified, but I think that's a given. We all know who Samantha Markle is. Is it really true that Florida law only has the permanent state, and not only that, they have to be the author and the publisher of it? Now, permanent, a lot of people mistake this one. They think slander is only verbal, and they might see a YouTube video, an interview on Oprah, and think that's verbal, that's slander. It's not. That is permanent because it's a recording. It permanently exists. It cannot be edited. It cannot be changed. That is what they said at that moment. So in my mind, my opinion is that the Oprah interview is in a permanent state, and that the defamer does not necessarily have to be the author, the producer, the publisher, the owner of it. They just have to be the person that chatted shit that wasn't true, that caused damage to a third person who has been identified, in this case Samantha Markle. Please, I pray to God, any of you out there, Florida lawyers, is this judge correct in that statement? So you don't have slander, and you must be the author, owner, publisher, producer of the shit that was chatted. You can't just be random. And also, can you tell me in Florida law, because in the UK, if one person chats shit, does the damage, they're liable. But if then someone else goes on and repeats the shit they chatted, they also are liable, and then any other party who repeats and chats the same shit, they are also liable. Is what Judge Honeywell or whatever saying that's not the case in Florida? That it's got to be the original person, they must be the owner, the publisher, the producer, the copyright owner of the shit that was chatted. Is that what she's saying? Because if she's saying that, well, God, I don't know why they brought the case in Florida in the first place. It sounds like the oddest law. Of course, I could be completely wrong. I have no idea about Florida law, but it sounds really, really weird to me. Is that correct? And I am going to put the judge's name in the title of this video in the hope that the lady gets to watch this and listen to this. Because the way I interpreted it, consider me a third person. I was a viewer. I did watch the Meghan interview. The things she said about Samantha made me go, and for sure will have made other parties think less of Samantha. In what way is that not defamatory? Is it just because Meghan was not one of the executive producers of Oprah? Meghan was not Oprah herself. Meghan does not own the production company. Is that really the case under Florida law? Or is it that Meghan went, la 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 la, I don't have any brothers and sisters. This woman had like a gazillion kids by a gazillion men because she's promiscuous and blah, 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 and she's nothing but dog shit. I know Meghan didn't actually say those things, but that was the context. The man then goes on to say there was a word that Meghan had used, and he said it's not derogatory. Her lawyer said, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? Let me find a word, because I think this word is going to become a bone of contention. Opportunist. Opportunist. According to Ticktin, Samantha's lawyer, the implication that Samantha is an opportunist. But Kump goes on to say that's not necessarily defamatory or derogatory. Let me find it. Kemp. As the 80-minute hearing went on, Kump said that it was not defamatory to call someone an opportunist. He said some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world are opportunists. All sorts of people are opportunists. Now, I don't know how it works with Florida law, but in UK law, what the lawyers and the judges would do is they would sit and look at the context in which the one singular word opportunist had been used. For example, an opportunist could be a burglar. He was an opportunist, he saw the window open, cash on the table, jumped in, seized his opportunity, stole the money and ran away. He saw an old lady walking down the street with her handbag open, so he beat the old lady up, took the money, he was an opportunist. That is one context in which that word can be used. Another, yes, could be successful entrepreneur. Again, as a third party, I as a viewer watched the interview and I did not hear Meghan saying that her sister was a successful entrepreneur or use the word opportunist in a good way, shall we say. I heard it more, if it turns out to be completely untrue, as chatting shit about a third party, which then goes on to create damage for that third party. I don't know if it's just me being confused. Is Florida law so completely different on defamation, and you just don't have the categories of slander and libel, you just have defamation? I'm suing you for defamation. Is that the case? Please, somebody answer, because I can see this one going south again, because Meghan needs her right to free speech in the First Amendment, but nobody else does, apparently. As always, look forward to hearing from any lawyer in Florida, please.